symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Queue, our YouTube channel that kind of goes over the various things, various forms of entertainment. A lot of what we have focused on this channel, movies especially. Brian and I have been reviewing X-Men 97. Please go and check out our discussions of that. Ben Phillips and I have started a project where we are ranking all 62 theatrically released Disney movies. There's so much, but obviously we have dabbled into wrestling a little bit with our Right Match series, where we pair a match with a movie. But this is just going to be all wrestling. I guess you could say this is the Right Match WrestleMania edition. Brian is not a consumer of the WWE product, so I had to bring somebody else in. I am bringing in a friend, my former co-host on Pro Wrestling Ponderings. I believe we did podcasts for 411 Mania as well. Ryan has also written for those websites as well as Voices of Wrestling. Ryan Rozanski is here. And Ryan, how are you doing? We are here for another WrestleMania weekend. We did not watch 17 million wrestling shows though, so I feel like we won WrestleMania weekend for not making that decision.
Yeah, I mean, given that it is WrestleMania weekend, I feel uncharacteristically spry and ready to go. I'm full of energy, Jerome. And, I have to say, if Brian is not a consumer of pro wrestling, you found the closest thing in Orion that is a consumer of pro wrestling. And I don't know, the Q audience. I didn't know that this was going to be a part of a bigger ecosystem. Is there an audience for this, Jerome? Or is this going to be listened by primarily family members of ours?
This will be up on the YouTube, so it will be for everybody to listen to. I don't know. You scour the YouTubes and you find this podcast, and please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and we will see where this goes. And I don't know if Ryan and I are going to do this much more, but certainly of all weekends to do it, WrestleMania is the one. It is a time for so many professional wrestling fans and former wrestling fans to come together and enjoy the biggest spectacle of the year. Now it is 2 nights. If you are a WWE fan, if you are an expanded universe fan, and you love all the wrestling, then there are literally just, if you went to Philadelphia on Tuesday, you could probably be at a wrestling show from 11 a.m. until 2 a.m. every night from Tuesday until about Sunday, I would say. And it is pretty remarkable. And again, Ryan and I really, we do not partake in a lot of other wrestling this weekend. We have lives to live and we have other entertainment to enjoy, but we did focus again on WWE. So let's get to it, Ryan. Coming into WrestleMania 40, what were you looking forward to? What were you concerned about? What were your expectations for WrestleMania 40?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the weekend, I didn't think that on paper these cards looked all that great. I think we're definitely in an era though where the like how the cards look on paper don't do much of the heavy lifting with at least the broad WWE audience. I think we found ourselves in an interesting situation, Jerome, where 10 years ago, it was independent wrestling on WrestleMania weekend, and then there was WrestleMania. And although that is true today, now we have seen AEW come up as a competitor to WWE. There's been a much more tribalism among wrestling fans. And so I think there were going to be people that walked away from this weekend satisfied almost no matter what, because this Bloodline storyline is so polarizing, but the people that like it really, really like it. And WWE has, whether justifiable or not, has positioned themselves as the company that tells stories. We tell stories here. Maybe not in AEW, but WWE tells stories. So I was curious. I mean, I think no matter how you feel about the Bloodline going into this show, there was going to be some kind of curiosity as to how it was going to end. And would they make the same mistake twice in a row? I mean, would they have Roman come out of here champion, or would they finally pull the trigger on it? I think that this event was always going to have some attention and some intrigue regardless. But I mean, I have to say, Jerome, on paper, I was not particularly looking forward to these shows coming into it.
I will say, in looking at the two nights, I definitely looked at night one as being the much more promising of the two, because you did have Sami Zayn and Gunther. Like, that's definitely the match that I had circled as being my most anticipated of the weekend, I would say. And that's for obvious reasons. I mean, Sami Zayn, I would say, is pretty much an all-timer. And in terms of his WrestleMania performances, you look at the last 2 years, two very different matches. But, I mean, the Johnny Knoxville match is one of the most popular on the rest on the in the circuit that I've seen, and the tag team match that we had last year may have been the best match of the entire weekend, regardless of which company you were watching. So that's definitely a match that was on my radar. I was also really excited for Ripley versus Becky Lynch. The Usos, I was very curious about that match. So night one to me was shaping up to be really solid, and night two I was kind of meh on. And as it turns out, like, I feel like like every time we did a Dragging Gate USA weekend, and we would look at the cards and we would be like, well, this card looks really good and this card doesn't look so good. Usually the card that didn't look so good would ultimately end up being the better show. And I kind of feel the same. I feel like night two was much better paced. I feel like it was overall a much more enjoyable show. And that is not even counting the main event. I just think night two, from a viewer's perspective, was just an easier watch.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, I think, yeah, if you forced me to watch one and only one of these shows, I would have picked night one. But yeah, night two clearly ended up being the better show. I just think the energy was just so much different on night two. And I really don't think it's I mean, I think a lot of people will say the weather played a factor into night one. And I mean, I'm sure that it did. But I mean, look, they weren't in Antarctica on night one. I mean, it was in the 40s. Like, you know, it wasn't like this catastrophic weather event. But still, sure, if the crowd was cold on night one and the wrestlers had a harder time out there, I understand that. But I think night two really understood what would work with the audience a little better. And perhaps it took going through night one to really understand that. But like the beginning of night two, Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, we'll get to it, but those two guys clearly understood that they needed to wrestle a match with a bit more urgency and a faster pace. And I think you saw that kind of throughout night two, that it just had a better understanding of how they're going to capture the audience.
Yeah, just much better paced overall. And I think the two matches that weren't, I think they could afford it. Like, I think the two matches that didn't really have that sense of urgency were the matches, again, that I think could kind of get into things a little bit more. And we'll get into that. We are not going to go night one, then night two, mostly because, let's face it, this is bloodline centric. Like, I feel that the success of this show ultimately it comes down to, did Cody Rhodes finish the story? And that ultimately is what matters. And I think the fate of this WrestleMania was very much going to be determined by Cody winning or not. Because I feel like, I don't know about you, Ryan, I felt like WrestleMania 39 was one of the better WrestleManias that I have ever seen, quite frankly. I would say that I was looking earlier at both nights and just thinking back, and I was like, there was some really good stuff across both nights. The Intercontinental title match was really good. You had a really good tag team title main event. I think both women's matches delivered in a big way. Logan Paul and Seth Rollins was quite honestly a show stealer. And it just felt like both of those nights just had some really good stuff. But a lot of that energy was soured because Roman Reigns beat Cody. And I'm not even going to say that I'm the biggest Cody fan, but it just felt like the energy, it just felt wrong. It felt like you were building to this crescendo, and then the crescendo just didn't happen. So again, I feel like I think a lot of people are going to have a much more positive feeling about WrestleMania 40 because of the ending of the show. I don't know. Do you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think part of the dread of WrestleMania 39 is that Roman walking out of there with the belt, you knew he wasn't going to lose the belt until at least WrestleMania 40. So you're talking another whole calendar year of Roman Reigns on top. And I think if you had Roman Reigns fatigue last year, certainly going into this WrestleMania, you had Roman Reigns fatigue. Yeah, I mean, this, I have the cage match ratings up for this year's WrestleMania. And yeah, I mean, these, at least, especially night two, is going to be remembered as a very, very fond, be remembered very fondly. I mean, it felt to me like a season finale in the same way that WrestleMania 30 felt like one with Daniel Bryan winning the belt in the main event. I can't tell you much about WrestleMania 30, but I can tell you about Daniel Bryan winning the title. I feel like as we approach WrestleMania 50, we will remember Cody Rhodes winning in the main event of WrestleMania 40, and we'll remember it very fondly because of that. So yeah, this WrestleMania will age well. I think almost irrespective of how Cody Rhodes' reign ends up playing out, because it will just be seen as the end of the Bloodline story, which I don't agree, but people will view the Bloodline story as one of the masterpieces of that WWE has ever created. So, yeah.
Yeah. We could probably have a greater Bloodline debate at some point. Now, I don't know if this is the show that is appropriate to do it, but let's just talk about all the Bloodline stuff. The Bloodline stuff on night one was quite frankly really bad. And it starts with the battle of the Uso Brothers. Now, look, we've had some really good brother versus brother battles. I love that Michael Cole completely destroyed kayfabe by saying this was the third time that actual brothers were meeting in the ring. Thus completely basically saying Undertaker and Kane was not really brother versus brother. Did that matter to you, or did it completely destroy you?
Dude, I was in. I think when Kane debuted as Undertaker's, evil brother. I mean, I was a kid. That really entranced me. So I wasn't crushed, but I didn't sleep great that night.
So in terms of brother versus brother, I feel like you kind of go into one of two categories. I think you go Bret Hart and Owen Hart. I mean, a legendary feud. The WrestleMania 10 match is one of the best openers of all time. They may have had the best cage match of all time at SummerSlam 94. Just have really good chemistry. But even with those two, those two apparently did a series of matches before WrestleMania, and they were not good. And basically, they decided that they would just throw out everything they were doing on the circuit and basically come up with something completely different for WrestleMania 10. And when you're talking about Bret and Owen Hart, you're talking about two of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Two guys who know what they're doing, can make adjustments. And I feel like when you get Matt versus Jeff Hardy, their matches have never been great. Matt and Nick Jackson have wrestled a couple times. Those matches were not good. But then you get Jay and Mark Briscoe. I mean, R.I.P. Jay Briscoe. But those two always had great matches. Even when they were 18 years old and they didn't know what they were doing, they were still having 4-star matches. So how would the Usos battle play out? Well, it was much closer to the Hardys, and I would argue even worse. For two guys who apparently have gone through this entire Bloodline feud, and there's been a lot of back and forth. There was absolutely no intensity to their match whatsoever. It just felt like nothing was making contact. There was a sequence of super kicks that just did not feel. It had no snap whatsoever. You had the theatrical I'm sorry moments that nobody bought, and then Jay just kind of won. And this match was one of the biggest disappointments of the weekend. And I did not have high expectations for the main event, but I was like, this Uso match should be really good. I don't know. Maybe it's because they were not allowed to use any of the shortcuts that the main event was trying to do with chairs and stuff. But this Uso match was incredibly disappointing and was very much a harbinger of the night, I would say.
I think it's remarkable how bad this match was. Cage match, especially when it comes to WWE, has some inflation, but this is sitting at a 2.85 out of 10 on Cage match. And I can't stress enough. I mean, I want these matches to be good, Jerome, but I'm happy that people are disliking this as much as me, because I had a real fear throughout this Bloodline angle over the past couple of years that this was going to be what pro wrestling was going to become, at least in WWE, which is monologues mid-match, this kind of this drama that lacks any authenticity. And Jay and Jimmy went out there. They clearly had this plan. And I think what separates them from the Owen and Bret and the Jay and Mark is that they would have been able to adapt on the fly, call things a little differently, make some changes as needed given the crowd response. Jimmy and Jay just couldn't do that. and they had a soulless match. A tremendous video package, I thought, in terms of what WWE produces with video packages going into this. I was really excited for this after that video package, and they this was historically a bad. This was like, I will remember how bad this match was. Very rarely do I find that there are two people that are going out there intending to have a good match like this and it falls so flat. I mean, I think we've seen WrestleMania matches with celebrities and, 2-minute squashes that maybe this match was better than, but I can't remember the last time people went out there at WrestleMania intending to have an epic and it fell this flat. So this was shockingly bad, Jimmy versus Jey Uso.
How many? And I don't want to be fair here. I want to be fair to both Jimmy and Jay. I would say that they have had a lot of show-stealing performances. There was a time when this tag team division was getting zero respect, and they were wrestling like 4-star matches on the frickin' pre-shows. And I just feel like these two guys have been very much underrated. And I felt like last year, them defending in the main event of night one, I felt like that was WWE finally giving them the respect that they deserve for what they have done for the tag team division. And I really feel like that main event was kind of a great moment for them. Even in a loss, it just felt like the Usos were really getting their respect as a tag team. And it felt like, okay, we're going to give you the ball again. And this time they dropped it in a big way. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know that it's ever happened before where two guys went from having the best match on WrestleMania to possibly having the worst. I don't know if that's ever happened before.
Yeah, I don't know either. But this was by far the worst match of the weekend to me. I mean, in the sense that what were they intending to do? And how short did they fall of actually accomplishing that? And perhaps it's just being shackled to the Bloodline story, not in the sense that the Bloodline story is like horrible, but just in the sense that they felt like they needed to like shoehorn the monologuing into the match and the super kicks and the I'm sorry, I love yous into the match. When really maybe what would have served them better is to kind of have like a PWG-esque spot fest out there for 11 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one.
I would say that spot fest idea is exactly, to me, what they should have done. Again, I think it's just a matter of really having the intensity. And again, I think with these stadium shows and with WWE in general, it is really hard to have an intense brawl. I just don't know that this company is capable of really allowing that to happen. And that's one of the biggest advantages that AEW has, is that AEW has the willingness to really allow their guys to get violent and it feel like there's an intense brawl. And certainly I think there are some cons that come with it, pun not intended, but I just don't think the WWE can take you to that intense place. And I think that really, unfortunately, manifests itself in the main event, because here you have The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, and you're trying to set up this epic match. And I don't know what I said to my friend, and I think I may have even tweeted this. I was like, Cody and Seth should just attack them before the bell. Enough with the entrances, enough with this BS. Like, let's just get going. Like, I'm just so sick and tired of all these grudge matches, just having full entrances, having the full pomp and circumstance. It's like, let's get things going here. And this match, the second longest match in the history of WrestleMania, was the main event of night one. And I don't know, maybe technically it was a little bit better than the Usos match, but I don't know, man. This was a slog in so many ways. I mean, Dwayne Johnson trying not to tear every muscle again. You had Roman Reigns who, I mean, look, anytime Roman Reigns is on offense, he's a heel. It is extremely slow paced. And you cannot convince me, and maybe we could have a longer Roman Reigns conversation later. But that, I mean, it just is nothing for me. Seth Rollins kind of is who he is. I mean, Cody Rhodes is not going to be able to carry these other four guys because I don't think that he's that skilled of an in-ring worker. I think he's above average, but I don't think that Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins were in a position where they could really do what they need to do to make this match entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did like this match better than the Usos match, but again, if you asked me, if you told me that I needed to rewatch one of them, I might go with Usos match just because it's 11 minutes, and this was 44, almost 45 minutes. I think where this match lost me was when, and it's funny because I see people praising this, so maybe I'm just out to lunch here, but when The Rock, because the whole idea in the story is that The Rock is now on the board. He's the final boss. He is an authority figure essentially in WWE. He tells the referee not to count him out. And that he tells the referee that if you count me out, you'll be fired. Okay, well, tell the referee not to count pinfalls then, or he'll be fired. I mean, like, I think we crossed the line into, well, why just The Rock could just control everything. And I don't know, maybe that's throwing cold water on it, but, again, this is the company that says that they tell stories. So, I'm just looking at what they're giving me with this stuff. And, I'm not trying to nitpick, but if a competitor in a match can tell the referee, if you count me out, you're fired, it's hard to get invested in the match itself. So, yeah, I mean, this was really long. I think it probably picked up in the last 15 minutes or so. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the finish was intriguing in the sense that people probably didn't expect Cody to take the pin. I think probably people thought Seth Rollins was taking the pin here. But, I think Cody taking the pin actually made me a little more at ease on the following night, because how could Cody lose twice in a row? Like, they couldn't screw it up that badly. So coming out of night one, I had this idea, okay, Cody's winning tomorrow. At least they're going to nail that. And now I guess the question, Jerome, is how was the execution of Cody winning? And did it really feel like they ended the story, or they finished the story on Sunday?
I mean, I feel like I would. So one of the things that I was asking everybody, not just you, was I said this match was going to go 55 minutes. And I feel like I willed into existence the fact that it didn't go nearly as long. I put only in quotes 33 minutes. And I mean, for me, I just feel like it was definitely better. I just think Cody and Roman, just having them in a one-on-one scenario was better. But I want to be really sensitive here, because I know that, Roman Reigns has undoubtedly gone through a lot in his life. And I can't even imagine what it has to be like to have to take oral leukemia medicine for the rest of one's life. I can't imagine what that has to do to your body. I can't imagine how that has to affect your mentality about life. But he's never been a good in-ring worker. You are never, ever going to convince me. I have watched so many WrestleManias where Roman Reigns has been in the main event, and it's been bad. The Triple H match, the second Brock Lesnar match, the Undertaker match. And again, I know that there are extenuating circumstances in some cases, but I want people to really think about the Roman Reigns, this title, this entire 3.5 years or whatever. Like, where are the truly memorable 4.5 star matches? Like, all of the Roman Reigns heel matches are exactly the same. It's very slow paced. There's a lot of interference. There's definitely some theatricality, but there's almost always some level of interference and some form of shenanigans. I would say the best title defense was probably the last man standing match that he had with Brock at the one SummerSlam. And again, the fact that, Brock and Roman have had two really good matches, and it's been a mixed bag. And I think this main event was also a mixed bag. And, I think people have kind of, Roman obviously main eventing his 9th WrestleMania. It was made a big deal because this is one more than Hulk Hogan, which you could say whatever you want about that. But in terms of like Hulk Hogan, any main event that he was in, there was heat. I'm not saying that he's a better worker than Roman Reigns, but anytime that Hulk Hogan was out there, I don't care whether he was wrestling Andre the Giant, whether he's wrestling King Kong Bundy, whether he's wrestling Sid, like, people cared. And there's a lot of Roman Reigns matches where the people either lose audience or shit on him. And that was not the case this time. But look at what they had to do just to seemingly finish the story. They had to have interference from just about everybody under the sun. And you had multiple members of the Samoan family. You had The Undertaker. You had John Cena. I mean, it was bordering on self-parody. And it's fitting that Paul Heyman was at ringside and went to the Hall of Fame, because this very much felt like an overbooked ECW Schmoz Fest.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on the main event. I mean, I will say, like, Roman Reigns, I agree with you that he is not a particularly compelling main event wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. I think his matches end up being pretty boring in the sense that you are just waiting for the interference to start. You're waiting for the referee bump. The first 20 minutes of the matches probably don't matter at all. And I mean, there are matches that I've liked. I mean, I think probably for me, the Logan Paul match stands out to me, just because I think there's a greater sense of urgency in that match with Roman Reigns. But, I think that they handled this really poorly. And like, this match is sitting at a 9.1 on Cage Match. So people love this match, but I think WWE has spent 20, 30 years conditioning their audience to like matches like this. And I mean, to me, the Bloodline storyline is that you have this dominant champion who, at the end of the day, just cannot get the job done alone. He needs all of this help from his cousins, and there are all these Bloodline members interfering on his behalf. He can never just get the clean victory. He needs all this help. And so to me, if I'm booking this weekend, Cody and Seth win on night one, and you finish the story by having Cody beat Roman Reigns one-on-one with no interference. And the story is, well, the family's not there. And Roman's resources have been stripped away, and he loses the title to Cody, and Cody has a dominant win. And, you would trust the performers to go out there and have like a 4-star plus match and draw in the crowd with the in-ring work. But that's not the route they went. And I think having it's not that the John Cena run-in didn't make sense. I think the Undertaker appearance probably didn't make a ton of sense. But they went for the pops instead of, finishing the story in a way that I think was the logical payoff to the past 3 years of Bloodline dominance. And I don't know how Cody would feel about this. I mean, it might have been his idea for all I know, but if I'm Cody here, I'm saying, I don't know. This feels like I was not the main player in this match. I mean, it feels like this was more of a cheap pop kind of main event bag of tricks thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, this match and this weekend as a whole felt more for Triple H than it did for Cody Rhodes. Like this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna get into that I want to get into that at the end of the show, but yeah, I certainly feel you on this point. And I want to piggyback on what you said about the whole not winning clean thing, because I want to point out Drew McIntyre is a heel, and yes, he got cashed in on, but he beat Seth Rollins clean, and it took 3 Claymore kicks, but he did it. Rhea Ripley, also a heel, won clean. Gunther, his Intercontinental title reign, which went 600 days, did any of his matches have interference? Because if they did, it'd be very surprising, because every time I saw him, he was winning clean. Even that match against Sheamus and Drew McIntyre last year, he won by himself.
Right. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. The route that they took felt like pretty lazy, and I think this was sports entertainment. For as much as Michael Cole wanted to yell, I love pro wrestling. This main event was not pro wrestling. This was sports entertainment. And that's fine it's fine if you like it. It's not for me. And even if you do like sports entertainment, I do think this wasn't really the best way for Cody Rhodes to win this title. But I can appreciate that the match didn't go 55 minutes. It was around 33 minutes. And it looks like Roman Reigns is probably taking an extended break here. And it looks like they're setting up something between Cody Rhodes and The Rock. And, the wheels keep going, but I don't know. I wasn't in love with either of the Bloodline main events on the show.
I think I liked main event of night 2 a little bit more than you, mostly because I kind of expected it. I guess because of my expectations, I think I was at least entertained by it. I mean, again, I think Cody Rhodes was put in a tough position, but I think that for me personally, I look at Cody Rhodes as somebody that has really just done an unbelievable job the last few years of knowing what he needs to do to be successful. I think he is he is incredibly good at reading the room and deciding, does he need to leave? Does he need to change? Or does he need to stay? And you look at where he was in 2016, you look at when he got released. I mean, he really reinvented himself as, I'm not going to be Mr. WWE anymore. I'm going to be the indie guy. I'm going to put a bunch of names on the list, and I'm going to go wrestle these guys, and I'm going to go to them. I'm not going to be Mr. Big Time. I'm not going to price myself out of these companies. Like, he wasn't like some of these other WWE releases that were demanding, really high numbers. I mean, look, he got paid certainly, but he put himself in a position where he was wrestling for every independent under the sun. He was wrestling for TNA. He was wrestling for Ring of Honor. Like, he put himself in a position to be successful and to, he was not going to be Terry Funk, but like Terry Funk, kind of forging his own path, using the independents as they should be intended for, to get ahead, to build a name for himself, this Cody Rhodes, and not Stardust, or not, the guy who wears a face mask or was an undercarder for all those years in WWE. Because let's face it, the majority of his WWE career was as a low card guy, or at best a mid card guy. And he completely reinvented himself. And part of that reinvention, of course, is AEW and what he was able to do, co-founding that company. But I think he made the right decision in leaving. I think that, I don't know if he outgrew the company or if the company outgrew him, or if WWE is just a better fit for his style, or if Brandy was just, really just not helpful in terms of his staying over as a babyface. But I mean, going to WWE was absolutely the right call for him. And like the run that he has had is unprecedented. And I think, again, Cody is not my favorite wrestler, but I have a ton of respect for what he has done. I have a ton of respect for the fact that he was able to completely change the game and bring in an alternative for an AEW, and just, again, knowing when to leave, knowing when to read the room, and to just put himself in a position for success. And part of it is luck. Like, part of it is just being extremely lucky in terms of getting the right fan reaction, having the right timing. But especially with what's going on now, like, he is in a very, very good position because of the fact that, Vince McMahon is no longer around. WWE is very much a corporate entity at this point. And look, we are 2 or 3 steps away from Cody Rhodes possibly being in management himself if things go the wrong way in the lawsuit and things. So, I mean, Cody Rhodes, even regardless of this WWE title reign and how successful it is, he is in an unbelievable position, and he did it I think I would argue that he did it the right way.
Oh yeah, I mean, it really is a wild ride from when he left WWE. And I mean, he leaves WWE. If you remember, he comes out with that list of dream opponents, and I rolled my eyes. I kind of hand waved it and chuckled at it. And yeah, look at him now. He's on Good Morning America, and I'm grinding out that 9 to 5. So who's laughing now, I guess. But
I mean, he also lived up to that list by wrestling just about all those guys on the list, and again, just grinding. I mean, that's the thing. I think a lot of these former WWE guys don't do that, and it really felt like Cody was putting himself in the grind like so many of these guys. And just like, who would imagine Cody Rhodes is the type of guy who's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to go to PWG and I'm going to be accepted by that crowd. And he did it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, he's someone who I think really gives off this aura that he's someone you can kind of feel good about getting behind. And I mean, he seems like a very authentic promo and person out there. So no, I'm really happy for Cody, and he seems like the right babyface to, if they want to have a new era, to lead the company into this new era. Yeah, I mean, I thought, I'm happy for Cody. Yeah, I mean, he's someone you want to put on Good Morning America. He's someone you want to, he can be a world champion. How long do you anticipate this title reign lasting?
I think people talk about the fact that this is going to be a short title reign, and I think people have talked about, Dusty Rhodes, his title reigns were this many days, this many days, this many days. I feel like this is going to go at least until SummerSlam, maybe beyond. I mean, to me, the match that they're going to do is Cody Rhodes versus Rock. Cody is not going to lose the WWE title with The Rock. The Rock is going to put him over. So he is not losing that title until he has that match with The Rock. And that really has a lot to do with it. So I would say, again, SummerSlam for sure. I think part of it is, are they in a position where they have the show in Germany at the end of August? Are they going to try to put Gunther over as a world champion on that show, or like is Gunther going to go after the other title instead? It's going to be very, very interesting. But I don't think this is going to be a short title reign. I feel like you don't put Cody over Roman Reigns that strong. Also talk about the fact that it's a new era and then have him lose the title at Backlash. That's just not going to happen.
See, for me, I'm thinking of at a minimum, we're doing Rock Cody at next year's WrestleMania, and Cody's going to hold the belt till then. But
I mean, the big question is like, what do they do at SummerSlam then? Is it Rock and Roman at SummerSlam, or is it Cody and Roman in a rematch?
I think Roman's probably going to take some time off. I don't know. I mean, I trust me, I do not know enough about this company to fantasy book. To me, it just seems like The Rock is going to want to wrestle at WrestleMania. And my concern would be The Rock not wanting to wrestle at SummerSlam. But, at the press conference, The Rock did seem to intimate that he wants to be wrestling, not full-time, of course, but this isn't going to just be a one-time thing. So we'll see. But the fact that they have us even talking about that really shows where this company's at in terms of just intrigue and just people wanting to watch it. I mean, for as much as it's not for me, this company is red hot right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly are. They are certainly well positioned moving forward in terms of the buzz and the media attention. We'll see where it goes because there is an ebb and flow. There is a lawsuit out there that could very much put a lot of these things at risk. So there's a lot of interesting directions that this can go in terms of Cody Rhodes. It was a little weird after the match that he invited Bruce Pritchard and Triple H out. That is very un-WWE like for that to happen, and it is another sign that Vince McMahon is no longer Shark, because you just don't get that. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of Vince things, like National Anthem and God Bless America sung before nights 1 and 2 of WrestleMania, not America the Beautiful. Commentary just feeling a lot looser than usual. Just pro wrestling being uttered on the show as much as it was. Yeah, there are a lot of signs that Vince McMahon is not around.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like the Triple H show this weekend. Jerome, we got to get into some of these other matches though, because
I do. I mean,
we have barely scraped the surface.
We spent a lot of time on the Blue Line, and we are not going to spend nearly as much time on some of the other things. Drew McIntyre. Has anybody reinvented themselves more than Drew McIntyre? Because it feels like he was the chosen one. That went over like a fart in church. He was in the 3-man band, was finally seemingly getting some momentum. Then he kind of did the same thing that Cody did, in that he did the independent grind. He got himself over, went back to WWE in a much better position. He finally gets his big moment, and there are no fans in attendance. And I got to say, he and Bayley did an unbelievable job of carrying this company during the pandemic when there were no fans. And I don't think Drew gets enough credit for what he was doing at that time. And I sincerely hope that he is re-signed at a very big number, because he deserves to be rewarded for his efforts. And I think that coming into this WrestleMania, like, he was seemingly going to be left out of it. And because he injured CM Punk on accident, like, he got to wrestle for the WWE title against Seth Rollins. I think the match with Rollins was good. Drew McIntyre is an incredibly entertaining character. And then after the match, and this is the thing, Ryan, I think the cash-ins have become very cliched, very not good. But I have to say, in this specific instance, Drew McIntyre, he wasn't really beaten up. He could have walked away, no cash in, but he had to stay around. He had to try to troll CM Punk and he finally made Punk so mad that Punk beat him down, and that's when Damian Priest came down and cashed it in. This is one of the better cash-ins that I've seen in a long time because Drew McIntyre 100% deserved what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a booking standpoint, a logic standpoint, I think you're right. I think the Money in the Bank concept is one of the worst things in professional wrestling. When AEW did it with Luchasaurus, like cashing in a title shot after Adam Copeland wrestled a match, I wanted to pull my hair out. I do not like the Money in the Bank concept, but I think what stood out to me was that it felt like Drew CM Punk was the real issue, and Damian Priest and the World Heavyweight title took a back seat to that. And I think that might be illustrated by the fact that it's unclear to me if Drew McIntyre is even going to try to go after Damian Priest. I think he's just going to...
It's funny you mentioned that. He did lose a number one contenders. They did a fatal four-way in the main event of Raw. Jey Uso pinned Drew McIntyre because Punk interfered and went after McIntyre. So McIntyre was going for the title. Unfortunately, Punk cost him again, and Jey Uso is going to be the number one contender. So I would assume that is one of the main events for Backlash is Jey Uso versus Damian Priest. And that's going to be a really big match for both those guys to really prove themselves based on what we said about Jey Uso. And, I think Damian Priest is solid, but I don't know if he's a world champion. So that's a big match for both guys. But I very much digress. But again, the Drew McIntyre character is really entertaining to me. And it's funny to me that I seem to be much more positive on things than you, which is very odd.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten grumpy, Jerome. I've grown up a lot since we last did this, and I have to pay rent now, and I have to do laundry. So I've become pretty jaded about life in the world that we live in. But hey, at least Grey's Anatomy is still on TV. But I like this match. Honestly, it reminded me of like a Brock Lesnar WrestleMania match in the sense that they were throwing bombs at each other. And this is what I mean. Night one felt like it dragged. It felt like a very, very long show. And then we had in the opener of night two, McIntyre and Rollins going out there, delivering a fast-paced, very urgent match that actually made the title feel important. So I like this match. I thought it was a really good way to start the show. And I like the post-match in a vacuum a lot. It's just I have my reservations about, the Money in the Bank as a concept. But, and I'm happy for Damian Priest because, if you were to tell me 10 years ago that Punishment Martinez was going to, cash in at WrestleMania, I would have called you a filthy liar. So I'm happy for him. He's someone who I think that a lot of people thought WWE would not sign due to his age. So good for Damian Priest.
So yeah, that's about it for the World Heavyweight title. Let's talk about the women. It feels like the women have taken a backseat this past year in terms of the WrestleMania build. And I think a lot of it is because just so much bloodline. And I think even CM Punk takes up a lot of oxygen. But I have to say, in terms of what we got from the women, I think Bayley versus EOS Sky was really fantastic. And we're going to kind of go out of order because I want to talk about the positive first. I think Bayley and EOS Sky was my favorite match of night two. I don't know if it's quite as good as Sami Zayn and Gunther, but the thing that I appreciated is this felt like the most pro wrestling match of the entire weekend, if that makes sense, because it really feels like Bayley got the match over purely because of her selling the knee, and that's not something that you see. And her selling the knee and getting the crowd into it is proof positive that pro wrestling can actually work if you do it properly and if you have a commitment to it. And again, I don't want to bury Seth Rollins because I know that he is legitimately injured. But the way that Bayley was selling her knee compared to Seth Rollins was literally night and day, and Bayley was doing a much better job of it. And again, I cannot believe that Bayley was a heel for as long as she was. It just feels it feels inexplicable to me that her and Sami Zayn, for that matter too, which we'll get into shortly, were heels as long as they were because they are tailor-made baby faces. And Bayley winning this match was 100% the right call. She deserved a WrestleMania moment. Again, just like what I mentioned with the pandemic about McIntyre applies to Bayley as well. Her winning at Mania, having such a good match, being as over as she was a great pleasure. And again, this is probably the best I've seen, Sky look as well. It just felt like her intensity was there, and it really feels like she rose to the moment. Even in a loss, it feels like it benefited her in some way because this performance was so strong.
Boy, Jerome, I thought EOS Sky looked good. I did not care for the match though all that much. Gotta be honest. I mean, I don't know if this is controversial. I think Bayley might be a little washed here. Just the way that she is moving around the ring. I preferred Rhea and Becky on night one. And I think for me, I just could not get into the EOS Sky Bayley match. It was very much a deviation from the rest of the card in its pacing, which I think could benefit it in some ways, but I think the match placement didn't help it going before Cody and Roman. I think everyone just wanted to get to Cody and Roman. But I think you're in the majority here because Cage Match has Bayley's match at an 8.5. So people definitely liked it. I did think EOS Sky looked good. Maybe I'm just skeptical of Bayley's match quality here and moving forward. But yeah, maybe I'm on an island with that opinion. I guess I just could not get into the Bayley match, but the opener of night one being Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, I liked it. I thought that they, it was kind of sloppy in a good way, if that makes sense. Like it felt like a struggle. It felt like they were really trying to get leverage on each other. And, it was like a strong win for Rhea Ripley. That match went 17 minutes. The Bayley match was about 14, so it was a little shorter. What did you think about the opener of night one, Rhea Ripley against Becky Lynch?
I thought it was good, not great. I much preferred the Bayley Sky match, and I am very surprised how disparate our opinions are on the Bayley match. I think her ring work was a conscious choice. I guess it's where I come down on it. I think Becky's matches are always a little bit sloppy, but I just think she is a star, and I think because she is a star, I think she gets away with a lot, and I think that her matches can still be very good because she is such a strong character. I just did not feel like this was the strongest of efforts, and it very much feels like this is the kind of match that they are going to do again at Backlash. It feels like we are not done with this program yet. And part of it is because there are not a lot of big women programs to be doing. So it feels like this is going to continue. And I'm sure Becky is going to win at some point. So this really feels like the first act in a story, not the final act. I thought it was okay. Like if I were to give a star rating to it, I would say like 3.25 stars. I thought it was good. I mean, Rhea's a really strong performer. I think her character is excellent right now. I'm glad that Rhea retained. I'm glad that they're keeping her strong. I'm glad she won clean. I'm glad the Judgment Day are not at ringside and helping her out because I think she is such a strong character. And I think I really hope that we see this again, and I hope it gets a lot more focus put on it. And again, The Rock is going to film a movie. Roman Reigns is going to be taking a lot of time off. So it feels like we may be able to place our focus on the women a little bit more. And I'm hoping that they can really bring home a good story for Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley moving forward. Because like I said, I think that they are capable of having something really big. And I'm hoping that happens either at Backlash or another future PLE.
Yeah, I agree that the women's division or the women did not feel like a big focus this weekend. And it's interesting too because the final women's match that we have to talk about is the 6-woman tag on night one: Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi against Damage Control. And I don't know if you've been as intrigued about Jade Cargill as I have, but it really does feel like she made the jump from AW to WWE, and the WWE kind of realized that she was not really ready. And so she has been in hiding for a lot of her time since she signed. I mean, she was in the Royal Rumble, she was in the match here, and it just felt to me like they are doing whatever they possibly can to hide the weakness.
I want to point out she also did a squash on Raw, beating Chelsea Green.
Jerome, you know what? I somehow that slipped through my, I used to do such great research for these podcasts. And
I understand that, but the point that we're making, I think that you're trying to make is that Jade Cargill is doing these squash matches and just they're letting her do big moves, and she's not actually getting better. And this is the same problem that AEW had. It's like, and I get that AEW doesn't really have house shows. I get that WWE doesn't have a lot of house shows. But my God, she needs to be put on a loop with Natalya and EOS Sky and Asuka. Like, she needs to be doing the fucking loop with these girls so that she can get better and actually become a better wrestler. Because the same problem that she had in AEW is the same problem she's going to have in WWE.
Well, and I guess another point would just be when she left AEW, I heard many WWE fans say, well, see, AEW just didn't know what to do with her. Now she's going to get a chance to really be a star. Well, she has the same presentation, almost the same entrance, and they're using her the same way that AEW did. So, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, the big difference is that WWE is treating her as a babyface, and they're putting her with two other strong black performers. And I think in terms of representation and in terms of the visuals, I think that is a little bit of an improvement. But I would also say that unless you're going to put her on the road, and again, a part of the problem is again, there are not as many house shows as there used to be. Jade has to be in longer matches. Otherwise, if you think that she is going to be able to wrestle Bianca either at next year's WrestleMania or next year's SummerSlam, whenever they do return, it's not going to happen because she's not going to be in a position where she can have long matches.
Right. Because you can only do this for so long. And I mean, the AEW crowd turned on her. And I think it would take the WWE crowd a lot longer to actively turn on her. But you can't have her doing these kinds of matches forever. This 6-woman tag match I thought was fine. But I think the story probably coming out of it is if we look back, if in 5 years from now, Bianca and Jade and Naomi are kind of like the shield of the women's division, we'll look back to this weekend as the first time that they really joined forces and established themselves. Because what I'm hearing from the press conference after night one is that the three of them really feel like this cohesive unit that have like a cool factor to them. So we'll see what they can do. I'm sure they're going to keep them a group. We'll see how long it lasts. So maybe they have something there, but I think the problem of Jade Cargill's in-ring ability has yet to be addressed in a way that's actually going to benefit her. Because at a certain point, it's not her fault. At a certain point, you have to be able to give her the opportunity to grow as a performer. So,
and to me, if you're putting Jade and you're trying to give her the star-making role, I mean, you're holding back Naomi and Bianca as well. And to me, the thing to do with Bianca is to do some sort of a heel turn and either have her and put her against Bayley on SmackDown and just really change the dynamic of those two. I mean, that seems to me to be the logical thing to do. Bianca's had a very good run as a face, but I think that for her, and I think part of it is, again, WWE is in a weird position because it feels like they're doing a better job of getting the kind of the main stories and putting the women in a better position. Like, they are not the cool-off match anymore. They're opening WrestleMania. They're doing the semi-main event. They're getting the time. The women's division has big stars. It just feels like there's absolutely no depth. So when it comes to WrestleMania and SummerSlam, you get the big women's matches, but then in those in-between months, you're just not getting it. And again, I would say the same thing about AEW. And AEW, I think they have an even more pronounced problem when it comes to the women's division, which hopefully Mercedes will help with. But I think if we are to continue to take the WWE women's division seriously, they have to put a serious effort into actually building an entire division and maybe even building enough depth to where they have a secondary title that is not the tag team titles. But that's what they have to do moving forward. It is not acceptable in my mind to have 13 matches over 2 days and 3 of them are women's matches. I just don't think that that's acceptable. I think if the number needs to be at least 5 at this point, and WWE has to do a better job of getting more women on the show and also having the right women on the show. You don't just do women's matches to do them. You have to put the women in a position to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess what I would say is I think you need some really hot feuds that don't involve titles. Like you need mid-card to main event women's wrestlers feuding not over a title, but just because they have an issue. And, I think that would be a step in the right direction. I would assume but again, Triple H has been at the helm for probably quite a while now. I mean, Triple H's NXT, to my knowledge, was pretty good about this, but yeah, maybe that hasn't fully transferred over to the main roster yet. Now, Jerome, would you say that Gunther and Sami Zayn was your match of the night on night one?
It was probably my favorite match of the weekend. I mean, I think Sami Zayn is one of the best in-ring performers that we've seen in the 20th century, and I'm gonna start banging this drum. I think that when you look at what he has been able to do, how many people said, "Oh, he's just a gimmick as El Generico, like he's never going to be successful in WWE." And look, he has not won a world title yet, but he has done everything else. He has done the great tag work. He had the great Intercontinental title match, semi-main event. He had a great WrestleMania tag match with Kevin Owens. Like, again, to think about where the tag team division has been, and the fact that when the tag team titles were on the line in the main event of a WrestleMania night, it was Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and the Usos that were involved. That is a testament to all four of them. But obviously, for the context of this, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Sami Zayn. And I could make a really strong argument that he probably should have been the guy to end Roman Reigns' title reign at the show last February, because of just how over he was. And it really felt like a moment that WWE did not necessarily capitalize on. And I just think that what he is able to do as a babyface, again, people thought it wouldn't translate, but it absolutely has translated. And just the diversity of matches that he has had that have been so good as well. Again, thinking about Johnny Knoxville, again, thinking about the tag match, thinking about Gunther, like he is able to do so many diverse kinds of matches that, I mean, it's just a real joy to be able to watch him on a consistent basis. And I'm trying to think of like a comp to him, but he just feels very unique. It doesn't feel like WWE has ever had like a Sami Zayn before. Like someone like Daniel Bryan, like you can make the comparisons to a Bret Hart or something like that. And with a John Cena, you can compare him to like the Austins, the Hogans, and whatnot. But WWE has never had a Sami Zayn at this level. Like if they've had somebody of his size, then they've never gotten to the point where they're semi-maining a night of WrestleMania or main eventing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he definitely has, I think between last year and this year, has found his way into these prominent spots. I think a lot of people wanted this to be Chad Gable, and the fact that it felt like they transitioned to Sami Zayn without much fan backlash ended up being a testament to, I think, Sami Zayn and how almost perpetually over he is, despite, not being always a prominent figure. So I like this match a lot. I thought it was definitely my match of the night for night one. It might be my match of the night for the weekend, but I do want to at least mention that I think that they really were a little heavy-handed with the Sami Zayn underdog stuff. All the stuff leading up to Sami Zayn getting to the ring, Chad Gable pumping him up, and you have the wife at ringside, and it's just like they were acting like he was this major, major underdog in this match. And as you said, Jerome, this guy main event in night one, won the tag team titles last year in the main event of WrestleMania. He's had the Intercontinental title multiple times before. I can understand how he would be maybe not a favorite against Gunther, but he certainly wasn't this huge underdog that needed to be, really talked to and motivated. And I just think WWE sometimes has this problem with subtlety. And they really were shoving it down our throat that he's this huge underdog. And I think they started out the match with a healthy ratio of cutting the camera to his wife. But as the match went on, we started seeing her more and more. And I don't know. I mean, I think a little more subtlety there would have went a long way, but the work itself was really good. It's funny. I don't think a lot of the fan base really understood what the top rope brainbuster was. I think a lot of people just thought it might even have been a botch. So it's just kind of interesting how, there really is this new crop of WWE fans. But I popped really hard for the top rope brainbuster. I thought it was a very fitting way to end such a long, dominant title reign. And I thought this match probably had a higher ceiling, but I thought they did a really good job.
I would say so. I think that I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I just think WWE in general does not do a good job of booking baby faces anymore. And I think this has been a pretty consistent problem the last 20 years. I think that the ramifications of them not booking baby faces well is John Cena and Roman Reigns getting booed as much as they do. And I think the 50-50 booking has played into it. I think that the sanding away the edges of so many of these baby faces doesn't help. I mean, I don't think people realize that if you look at the early days of Hulk Hogan's title reign, like when he first won the title in 1984, and even if you watch like his AWA stuff, like Hulk Hogan was an ass kicker. Like he would just go in the ring, and like it wasn't necessarily about like the vitamins and all that stuff. Like he would just go in there and just destroy people, hit the leg drop, and just like, would he cheat? Yeah, he would cheat, but it's because he's an ass kicking babyface. And I think people, when they talked about Steve Austin, like that's where the Hogan comparison comes in because they were both ass kickers. And I think that's why Bruno was over too. Like Bruno was not an underdog. Bruno was the WWF champion for 12 years combined across 2 title reigns. And you watch some of his matches and he's just obliterating people, especially like some of the blow off cage matches. Like he would literally beat the piss out of his opponent and then walk out the door, taunt the person on the way just walking out the door. So I think I would love to get back to that. I would love to get back to where we have ass-kicking baby faces again, because I think that is something that WWE just has not done probably since Steve Austin. It just doesn't feel like, I mean, I guess The Rock to an extent was that, but he wasn't really a sustained number one definitive babyface for long enough. I mean, The Undertaker a little bit, but he was also a guy who was so well established at that point. And like there's the supernatural element as well. I mean, I don't know. I would just love to see a straight up ass kicker babyface champion. And we're not going to, because I don't think they're positioning Cody that way. I mean, I think they could if they wanted to. I don't know. I just think there's something to be said for an ass kicking babyface. And I'm not saying that Sami Zayn has to be that person because, again, Sami Zayn's strength is being the underdog. But I think WWE just generally has a problem booking strong baby faces, and they always resort to baby faces as the underdog.
Well, yeah, and I was going to actually say I would like Cody to lean more into the ass kicking baby face motif. I mean, not that he needs to be so cold like you said, but getting away from more of the crying promos and just more into, now I am the champion, and that, like, so what are you going to do about that? And hopefully Sami Zayn kind of picks that up too. Yeah, I mean, we are in a reign. Like, I think it's tough to not be presented as the underdog against someone like Gunther or Roman Reigns. So, maybe there's a pass there. But, overall, I thought the match was strong. I think what could have actually is pretty close to that match for my match of the weekend is the United States title match between Logan Paul, Kevin Dunn.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation because, I mean, I don't know. I personally have a strong distaste for Logan Paul, so that undoubtedly covers my feeling on it. But before we transition to the U.S. title match, I just want to say I think Gunther did a hell of a job bringing the Intercontinental title back into some prestige last year. I mean, that triple threat match was really, really good. It just feels like he did an unbelievable job with the Intercontinental title, a title that has kind of been bastardized because there's 2 world titles. And I would make a strong argument that Gunther put the Intercontinental title in a better position than the title that Damian Priest is holding right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, I mean, obviously, Gunther is has to be a top 3 favorite wrestler in the company for me, if not, I mean, if you let me start a promotion and I got to like poach someone from WWE, I mean, he would be one of the top choices. I think, yeah, and I think losing it to someone like Sami, and I think that's the argument to losing it to someone like Sami instead of Chad Gable, is by losing it to Sami, you also have very, very close to a main eventer now holding that title. And so you're really, these Intercontinental champions now are upper mid-carders. And I certainly Gunther is losing up here. I mean, I would imagine he will be in the main event scene now. And good for him, because he certainly deserves it.
U.S. title match, I think it was good. Best entrance. Randy Orton had my favorite entrance, which you undoubtedly have to give the assist to Kevin Owens. I marked out hard for that. I will not apologize, because it just feels like every entrance is exactly the same, and Kevin Owens completely changed it by doing it. And again, it was goofy, but it just felt so different, and it just felt like something like, this is very out of the ordinary. It just feels like everything about WrestleMania feels just so staged, and every entrance is meant to be epic, and this was just fun, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the dynamic between him and Kevin Owens throughout this whole feud has been fun, and they're acting as how I would expect them as human beings, knowing them, to act. I don't know if I like this match probably more than you, because it just felt like a pleasant pro wrestling match where everyone kind of understood their role, and there was a dynamic here. I mean, I'm curious to hear what your full thoughts on Logan Paul are. I think he's a terrific professional wrestler. I don't know a ton about him, his personal life.
He's a detestable human being is the problem. And I mean, I guess that's part of the problem, is that I don't necessarily disagree that the match was bad. I just think that for me, the idea of Logan Paul just being allowed into the ring, and given what he has done as this like controversial streamer who has like shown dead bodies on his YouTube page. I mean, it's very disgusting to me. I think he and his brother are blights on society. And it's very hard for me to separate that. And especially in a time when WWE needs to weed out some people, it just feels like Logan Paul is a ticking time bomb. And at some point, it's going to bite them in the ass really, really hard. And putting him over as strong as they have, not just having him wrestle, but also giving him a major championship and putting him in such prominent positions and having the advertising be closely tied to him. I mean, it feels like it's not going to end very well. That being said, I think the match, it did not fall into the trap of two guys in the ring, one guy on the outside. I think that most of the interactions were between the three of them. So I did appreciate that. It could have been very easy to like fall into the danger zone of having two baby faces and one heel, and that not working. I think they played around with that really well. I think I like Randy Orton. Fun Randy Orton is better than boring Randy Orton. And yeah, I think this was probably like a 3.25 star match. But again, the idea of Logan Paul winning just makes me ill.
No, I understand, Jerome. We can get off the Logan Paul match. I mean, to me, it was a pleasant triple threat. I like that you pointed out they interacted with each other a lot. It wasn't 2 in, 1 out kind of, triple threat rut that you can typically fall into. The last title match that we were going to talk about was the tag team title match, where both sets of tag team titles were on the line in a ladder match. And this was 6 teams. I guess I'll say the phrase "A Town Down Under." I didn't want to say that out loud. They were in this match: Austin Theory, Grayson Waller, Miz and R-Truth, Damian Priest and Finn Balor, Gargano and Ciampa, Kofi and Xavier Woods, and then Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. Jerome, is there anything lamer than this Gargano Ciampa DX entrance?
I really like Johnny Gargano. And whenever you make a statement like that, something else is coming. It was cringe to the end. It was bad, like flat out indefensible. Like, I genuinely cannot believe that those two guys. I mean, these two guys, they're too smart and they are too talented to be doing something like that. That's where I come down on it. And it just that like they got zero reaction coming out, and I don't know where their careers are going, but if you want to talk about two guys who absolutely positively need to separate from WWE, it is Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Those guys need a separation, and maybe they need to go back, but they need to do something else.
Well, I agree with you, and I come at it from that angle too, where I like Gargano, I like Ciampa, but I mean what they're doing now is getting literally no reaction, and so it does end up being cringy. I thought this match was very tame for a modern day ladder match, which is totally fine. I didn't think it was particularly that good, and I don't think. I have also seen crazy, dangerous ladder matches that I don't think are good either. So I can't really explain it. It just felt like things were happening. I think one of the nice byproducts of it not being based around spots is that it seemed like people were trying to climb the ladders more, which I like because there are so many spots in ladder matches where someone could be trying to get the titles, but they decide to like jump through a table instead. The other thing I'd point out is there's a great moment at the end of the match where Damian Priest is trying to climb a ladder, but he's climbing a gimmicked ladder, and the referee is desperately trying to tell him, please go get a real ladder. Don't climb this one. And then The Miz tries to climb up the other side, and the ladder caves in. I thought that was great. What did you think about this?
It was okay. Listen to the referees, people. Just stop ignoring them. Like, he was making a really good point. Listen, man, that could have ended really, really poorly. And I would agree this was very tame. Just feels like the ladder spots are kind of played out. And I don't really know what else there is to do with the ladder match beyond just crashing into them. And again, there's got to be a creative way of using the ladders in terms of climbing, but it just feels like in terms of the violence, there's nothing else we could do. The Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Money in the Banks, all that stuff, it's been done to death. I just don't know what else you can do at this point. But this is what WWE is. They're a spectacle company, so they have to do one or two of these a year. This is one of them. You'll get two more at Money in the Bank with the women and the men. This was okay. Ryan, can we talk about Austin Theory's inexplicable WrestleMania weekend run?
Wait, so do you want to go back to Evolve days?
Yes, I want to go back to Evolve 103 on April 6, 2018, when Austin Theory defeated Keith Lee clean in the middle of the ring to win the WWN Championship. That is the start. Let's fast forward to 2022 when Austin Theory wrestled Pat McAfee on a WrestleMania night two. I'm sorry, on night no. Theory lost to McAfee on night 2 of WrestleMania on April 3rd of 2022, but then helped Vince McMahon in Vince McMahon's last WWE match defeat McAfee. Steve Austin hit Theory with a stunner. Last year, Austin Theory pinned John Cena clean as a whistle in the middle of the ring to retain the United States title. This WrestleMania, he becomes one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. How in the fuck does this happen?
Yeah, I mean, he keeps finding ways of getting on these shows. That Keith Lee match is a head scratcher. I mean, yeah, because if you would have told me one of these guys in 2018 is going to go on to do some, fairly prolific things in the business, I probably would have said Keith Lee. But yeah, I mean, they are definitely the tag team champions. And Jerome, name me your Austin Theory and Grayson Waller dream matches now that they're champions. Who do you want to see them defend these belts against? I heard Matt Hardy's a free agent.
I would love for them to lose to Kevin Owens and Randy Orton in about 30 seconds on Friday SmackDown. That would be my dream. But you mentioned Matt Hardy as a free agent. Let's leave the memories alone.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're gonna have to talk about one of his ladder match compadres pretty soon. But
R-Truth got his WrestleMania moment and then was defending Vince McMahon on Instagram the next day. So that's exactly what you want. And yeah, the ladder match was fine. I guess like if you're gonna get the tag teams on, you could do worse than in getting the tag teams a payday. So this was ultimately fine, but very, very forgettable.
Yeah, Jerome, you probably haven't seen me in a while, and it's been years since we've done regular podcasts, but I have to report I look very similar. My physical appearance would not strike you as radically different. Can't say the same about AJ Styles. I don't know what happened to this man.
He looks extremely well, Ryan. He looks extremely well.
I hope he's doing okay. I mean, I don't know. I just hope he's doing okay.
The match with LA Knight was exactly what it needed to be. Do you know what my favorite fun fact about this match is?
No.
This is the only match where one finisher got the win. There were no kicked out of finishers. LA Knight hit his finisher and won clean.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of WWE fans. That's their big criticism of AEW is that it's just kick out city. But
which is so weird to me because WWE does exactly the same thing.
Oh yeah, I mean the McIntyre Rollins match was just kicking out of finishers left and right.
Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. How many goddamn spears did Cody kick out of?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think this match, you're right. It stood out by just doing less and kind of just being a very simplistic, well-executed singles match that, didn't try to do too much. I think this was totally fine.
I don't know what LA Knight's ceiling is. I mean, I don't think that he is nearly as good of an in-ring worker as Sami Zayn. I think the problem with Dwayne coming back is that because LA Knight is kind of a Rock Steve Austin impersonator, The Rock coming back really does damage to LA Knight, and I just don't know that he is ever going to be elevated into a position where he is anything beyond maybe the United States champion. And maybe that's fine. Maybe being a mid-carder is good, but I don't know. This was good. It felt a little bit inconsequential, but I'm kind of glad it exists because this is one of our very few non-championship grudge matches. And I mean, AJ Styles certainly is somebody who deserves to get this kind of payday. So I'm very glad that this match was good, but ultimately it wasn't anything more than like a 3.25 star match.
I'd go like 3 stars. Yeah, I think LA Knight is probably someone who, the heel can always beat en route to the main event because LA Knight can lose, I think, quite a bit, and the crowd is still going to like him and still going to chant along and say yeah with him and stuff like that. So I wouldn't mind him in an upper mid-carder role where he's kind of like the gatekeeper for the heels as they ascend to the main event. But yeah, this was totally fine. What is left to talk about? Oh, Jerome, you mentioned despicable human beings earlier. Bubba Ray Dudley was at WrestleMania.
The Alex Jones impersonator. I would strongly. By the way, there's a really great documentary on Max. Please watch The Truth versus Alex Jones. It is one of the best documentaries that I've seen in a long time, and I just want people to watch that. It is well worth your 2 hours. Aside from all the jokes about Bubba Ray, I mean, it's really good. Speaking of jokes, there's the Philly street fight, which was, here's the thing. Was Snoop Dogg's commentary on this match good? No, it was not. Was it appropriate? Yes, it was. Did I enjoy it? Also, yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought Snoop Dogg was like someone who hasn't watched wrestling in a long time, and he just kind of walks in on you watching wrestling and just sits down and, just starts commenting on it.
I do want to point out that he saved WrestleMania last year. Remember when Shane McMahon came in, immediately tore his quad, and Snoop Dogg had to call it in the ring?
Snoop Dogg saved the show. Yeah, I'm glad this Karrion Kross unit lost. I mean, good Lord. Yeah, just go away. Can
we just talk about Paul Ellering for a second? Of all the people, if you had told me that there would be somebody from the old days who would have a prominent role on the show as an active manager or wrestler, what would you give the odds of Paul Ellering being the guy?
Yeah, exactly. No, not very high. And
good for him. Good for him.
When he's not very active because he doesn't do anything, but
he's
there.
He's never that manager though.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Ellering legitimately was the manager for the Road Warriors. That's what.
Right.
He wasn't the guy that was interfering a lot because it was the Road Warriors. He didn't need to, but he legitimately was the one that was doing their travel, keeping track of things, and he was getting $250,000 at one point from Crockett. Good for him. That's all I can say is good for him.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I
no,
have much nicer things to say about him than anybody else in this match.
Yeah, they had an unfortunate table break before someone could go through it. And it was just, I don't know, it seemed like this was the ECW offer tribute match. And but ECW in its prime was not this. Whatever this was, hitting people with kendo sticks and doing the what's up, headbutt to the groin. Like, it was just lame. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I understood the concept of it, but Bubba Ray, man, he goes on Busted Open and he likes to he likes to tweak AEW booking, but he never seems to do that with WWE, and I think we know why. Because he wanted this WrestleMania.
I mean, the podcast thing surrounding WWE and AEW, it's really embarrassing, and we could probably talk about how embarrassing that is at some point, but specifically for this, I mean, it's fine. It was a pleasant. I mean, it wasn't bad, but Karrion Kross sucks, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, the Authors of Pain are okay, but Karrion Kross is just so bad.
Yeah, no, he is, and I mean, I think he's had more than enough opportunities. I mean, he can only really be this. It feels like there's really not much else you can do with him. So. Yeah, I think we should move on.
Listen, I'm not a thin person, but Karrion Kross he needs to either commit to being a fatty or not. Like, if you're going to be a fatty, fine, go be Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed is extremely fun as kind of a bigger guy. I want to see more fat guys in wrestling, but Karrion Kross is like in this weird middle ground, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it does not. It does not work. I mean, I think his much larger problem is that he's an extremely boring professional wrestler.
Brian coming in heavy with that shot, man.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Name your favorite Karrion Kross match. I can't do that. So.
If I gave you a best of Karrion Kross DVD, it would be blank, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be like that. Who was that one half of America's Most Wanted? The Chris Harris that went to WWE. Braden Walker.
But you know what? At least Chris Harris in TNA had some really good matches. So that it's not a 1-for-1.
No, it's not.
Gary Kidney come up with some really good best of America's Most Wanted stuff, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about Braden Walker in the
yes.
Fed. Yeah.
Yes.
And then I guess the last match we haven't really talked about was Andrade and Rey Mysterio against Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar.
I mean, it's fitting that I pretty much forgot that we needed to talk about this match because I think the match was kind of forgettable. I don't understand. You have all these Latino wrestlers and they're just wrestling each other, and they bring the Dominic and Rey thing back out of mothballs. Again, it just feels like Dominic is a really great heel performer. Rey Mysterio is a freaking legend. These two deserve better. I mean, I don't know about everybody else. I don't like Andrade. I could very much take or leave. Santos is fine. This just feels like a terrible use of everybody involved. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles getting involved. It's just like, why are you involving them in this match? It didn't work.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, the match was fine.
Yeah,
but it didn't work. If that makes sense.
They even tried to do that. I'm gonna call him Shima Zion, but Jaquan Wild is his name, I think. Like where they launched him.
Cool. I mean that the jumping off the rope and going like halfway down the aisle, that looks incredible. But to what end?
Right. Yeah. It just felt like they were trying to play the hits and get this portion of the roster on the card somehow. And they definitely accomplished that. But I think the crowd was really hurting for a reason to get invested into this at all. So yeah, no, it didn't really accomplish much. I think with the build and really like stakes or something to really sink your teeth into, this could have been good. But I'm a little skeptical of Dominic in the ring. I mean, people tell me he's this. Yeah,
he's not a great in-ring worker, but he is really, really good at just being a douchebag and a heel. And he's the type of person that is going to have a job for life, and he probably deserves it just because he is such a heat magnet.
Right. It feels like that he is out there for that reason. Yeah. And
look, you could do a lot worse than just be that guy. Like, you are the type of person who you're not going to have to take like these stupid, ridiculous bumps. You're going to have a 20-year career, and your bump card is going to be pretty low because you're just able to draw heat and you're able to get your ass kicked really well. And again, my hat's off to him. This match was just no good.
No. So how do you want to wrap this up, Jerome? Like, from a big picture perspective on WrestleMania?
It just feels to me like WrestleMania weekend. I mean, I want to give a lot of credit to Kevin Ford, who Ryan and I both, were at PWP with, and 411 Mania. I want to give a lot of credit to Kevin Ford. Kevin Ford said something really smart in his review of the Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor show. And he basically compared that show specifically to something like binge drinking, where you're just consuming all of this wrestling and you're doing all this stuff. And it really feels like there are certain times when there are things that, just kind of wash over you. And it feels like a lot of what WrestleMania weekend has become is just that. Like, you're just consuming all of this wrestling. And certainly Ryan and I are not the type of people who are watching 15 shows a weekend anymore. But that's something you certainly could have done. I mean, it just WWE product alone, we could have watched SmackDown. We could have watched NXT Stand and Deliver. We could have watched both Manias and Raw. And that alone is like 10 to 12 hours of wrestling. And that doesn't even include GCW. GCW had a 2-hour clusterfuck. Ring of Honor's show went almost 5 hours. So what are the things that are really going to stick out about this WrestleMania weekend? And so much of what WrestleMania weekend is about, it's about moments. It's not about necessarily match quality, although there are still some good matches. It's not even necessarily about like the feuds anymore. It's just about, we're going to create these moments for the people who deserve them. So you get Mark Briscoe winning the Ring of Honor title, which is good. I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. And Cody winning the title. I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. But it just feels like, to me, the business of pro wrestling is about the business of pro wrestling. And it's not about like settling feuds or settling rivalries at this point. It's just merely about, we're going to keep the engine moving, and we're going to do like weird matches, or we're going to do dream matches, or we're going to play on nostalgia, or we're going to do something irony based. It very much feels like that's what WrestleMania weekend is. And again, it's very profitable. Again, the engine is kind of always moving, but it feels like you can watch this weekend and remember very little of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I feel like if we were here 10 years ago talking about a WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia, there would have been so many must-see events, throughout the whole weekend, that we would have been watching 15 shows. And here we are in 2024, and it seems like these shows are happening just to happen. I think there was a show called Dean, and it was a tribute to a message board member who had passed away. That looking at the card for that show, it felt like that was a show that was constructed with a certain theme and a certain uniqueness to it that felt like a WrestleMania weekend show. But a lot of these cards are just, we got to do Bloodsport and we got to do Spring Break, but the identities of these shows have kind of been lost through the years. So, yeah, I mean, there wasn't a ton. I mean, I did really like Mark Briscoe winning the title in terms of just being a moment, but I think there were some Dragon Gate talents at certain shows this weekend that I do want to check out some of those matches. But there wasn't a lot to that, I'm really marking in terms of wanting to go back and watch this weekend. And, that's a shame, but, I'm not complaining about not watching 15 shows. Now, are you telling me that Kevin Ford watched pretty much everything?
I know that he watched Supercard of Honor and WrestleMania, and I believe he watched NXT, but he certainly was not up at 2 a.m. on Thursday for sure.
Well, he watched CZW.
He did watch the Punjabi prison match. He did watch that.
Yeah, but you also mentioned, I think, that he watched CZW, which, I mean, if you're in CZW watching territory, you're putting the time in.
Did you see that DJ High put out a stipulation that there's going to be some match in the future that if somebody loses, he'll sell the GCW?
No, but
That's the
the story
funniest.
we should be following on this podcast.
I mean, it is what it is at this point. And I don't know. We're in such a weird position because, again, AEW just sucks away so much of the oxygen from the independents now. And I don't say that in a negative way. I just think that AEW has positioned itself as the clear number 2, and they're going to take up a lot of attention. And we don't have room for Ring of Honor and TNA even anymore. And to give any attention to the GCWs is just going to be really, really difficult. And I mean, look, there's a reason that I think that the popularity of independent wrestling on a national level has gone down. And certainly I think companies are still able to find success on the local level, but you're not, GCW is never going to be where Ring of Honor was in 2006. That's just never going to happen. And I know that they do tour and they're going to like Albuquerque and Denver, but they are never going to be at the level of a Ring of Honor. They have a very clear ceiling.
Well, and I think unfortunately the reality is they had that Hammerstein show a few years ago and just didn't really work out. It didn't create the momentum that they needed to really ascend to a different level. But yeah, I mean, WrestleMania weekend in the future is going to be interesting. I mean, it definitely, there's less hype around it, but it seems like the shows are starting earlier and there's more of them. So and it seems like it should be going the other direction, where maybe if there were just a less amount of shows, but there was a concentrated effort to make those shows important and meaningful, we'd be better off. But it seems like we've gone in the opposite direction of sheer quantity, which I don't think is a good strategy.
No, I don't think it is either. And with WrestleMania, I mean, when it goes international, I will be very curious to see how these companies react to that, because it's very different for everybody to have a passport, and it's very expensive to fly everybody over to the UK or to Germany or to France. I mean, wherever WWE decides that they're going to start holding WrestleMania. So, that's undoubtedly going to play a factor too. But I mean, look, I think WrestleMania is just so ubiquitous at this point that WrestleMania is going to continue to do extremely well. And there's no doubt about that. And everything else, I mean, companies and wrestlers are going to come and go, but WrestleMania is going to be the constant, and we'll have to see what happens. I mean, is Ring of Honor going to continue to be able to run on its own? Are we going to see GCW just kind of stay where they are and just carve out this niche and just pick at it? We'll see. But all I know is that WWE is the true trendsetter, and I don't know whether they deserve that position or not, but I mean, they have a 50-year head start on every other company, and they're rolling right now, and they finished the story, and they have a ton of momentum, and we'll see what they do with it. So, anything else, Ryan?
No, Jerome, this was fun. I don't know where this is being posted. I forgot the name, the queue, I think, but I hope
this will be a YouTube exclusive on From the Queue, and hopefully we'll do something very, very soon. I don't know, but definitely stay tuned for the queue.
Jerome, do you need my PayPal for the ad revenue share that I'm getting, or?
Oh yeah, just email it for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. So for Ryan, I'm Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again soon.